I grew up in a small town surrounded by hills. The air always smelled of rain and pine. My father worked at a factory. My mother took care of the house. We did not have much, but we had enough. I was their only child. From a young age, I liked to fix things. Radios, watches, old lamp, anything broken, found its way into my hands. My father used to say, "You don't talk much, but your hands do." He was right. I was quiet. I preferred machines to people. Machines made sense. They did what they were built to do. People didn't. When I was 16, my mother got sick. It happened fast. One week she was cooking dinner, the next she was in the hospital, and then she was gone. I remember my father standing at the window the night she died. He didn't cry. He just looked at the sky and said, "Some things you can't fix." After that, he changed. He worked more, spoke less. The house grew cold, even when the stove burned. I finished school and started working in a small electronics shop in town. The owner, Mr. Lee, was kind but quiet like me. He fixed old radios, clocks, and sometimes phones. I liked the smell of solder and the hum of electricity. It was safe, predictable. I lived alone after my father passed away a few years later. He died in his sleep. The doctor said his heart just stopped. I think it stopped a long time before that. Days turned into weeks, weeks into years. My life was simple. I woke up, made coffee, walked to the shop, worked until evening, then went home. I didn't speak to many people. The town was small, and everyone knew me as the quiet one who fixes things. I didn't mind. I didn't need company. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Then, one morning, she walked in. It was raining outside. The bell above the shop door rang, and a woman stepped in, shaking water from her umbrella. She wore a gray coat and had tired eyes but a gentle smile. She carried a small clock wrapped in cloth. "Is this place open?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes. What's wrong with it?" She unwrapped the clock. It was old, the kind with two small bells on top. One of the hands was broken. "It belonged to my grandmother," she said softly. "It hasn't worked in years. I thought maybe you could make it tick again." I took the clock and examined it. "I can try," she smiled. "That's all I ask." She wrote her name and number on a piece of paper. Her name was Anna. After she left, I set the clock on my workbench. The gears were rusty. The spring was loose. It would take time. But as I worked, I found myself thinking about her face, her voice. It was strange. I never thought much about anyone before. 3 days later, the clock ticked again. It was a soft, steady sound, like a heartbeat. I cleaned it, polished the glass, and waited for her to return. She came that afternoon. "You fixed it," she said, smiling wide. I nodded. "It works now." She turned the clock in her hands, listening to the ticking. "It sounds alive again." For a moment, we both stood in silence, listening. Then she looked up. "Do you like fixing things?" "Yes," I said simply. "Why?" I thought for a moment. Because it gives things a second chance. She smiled again. That's a good reason. After she paid, she lingered a little before leaving. Thank you, she said. You don't just fix clocks, you fix memories. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. When she left, the shop felt quieter than usual. The next week, she came again, this time with an old radio. I think it's broken, she said. It's very old, I replied. So am I, she laughed. Can you fix me too? I didn't know how to answer, so I just smiled a little. That day she stayed longer, watching me work. She asked small questions about tools, wires, how I knew what to do. Her voice was calm, never pushing. I didn't mind her presence. It was peaceful. After that, she came more often, sometimes with something to fix, sometimes with nothing at all. One afternoon she said, "You never talk much." "I don't have much to say," I answered. "Maybe you do," she said softly. "You just never had someone to listen." Her words stayed with me long after she left. Weeks passed. She kept visiting the shop. I began to expect her. I found myself glancing at the door when the clock struck noon, waiting for the bell to ring. She told me small things about her life. She worked at the town library. She loved to read but hated noise. Her parents lived far away. She lived alone, too. We were alike in many ways, two quiet souls moving through quiet lives. One day she brought me a sandwich. "You probably forget to eat when you work," she said. I looked at it, unsure what to say. "Thank you," she smiled. "You're welcome." It became a habit. Sometimes she brought food, sometimes tea, sometimes nothing at all's, just herself and her quiet smile. I started to talk more, not much, but enough. I told her about my father, about my mother, about how silence became a wall I didn't know how to tear down. She listened. She never interrupted. One evening, when I was closing the shop, she was still there, standing by the window, watching the rain. "Do you like the rain?" I asked. She nodded. "Yes, it makes the world softer." We stood there for a long time, saying nothing, just listening to the sound of the drops hitting the glass. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel heavy. It felt warm. As months passed, her visits became part of my life. The shop didn't feel right without her laughter or her soft hums as she looked through old clocks. But one morning, she didn't come. I told myself it didn't matter. People get busy. Still, every time the bell rang, my heart lifted, only to fall again. Days went by, then a week. No Anna. I tried to work, but everything I touched reminded me of her. The radio she brought, the cup she used for tea, even the clock she had asked me to fix, it ticked like her voice, steady and soft. I walked to the library, pretending I needed a book. She wasn't there. The woman at the counter said, "She's been away for a few days. Family emergency, I think." Something heavy pressed on my chest. That night, I sat at my table, the shop dark except for one lamp. I stared at the small clock she loved so much, watching the seconds move. It was strange how quiet could feel so loud. A week later, the bell rang. I turned, and there she was, standing in the doorway, holding her umbrella, smiling tiredly. "You're back," I said. "I am," she replied. "Did you miss me?" I wanted to say yes, but the word got stuck. So I just nodded. She smiled, as if she understood anyway. She looked pale, a little thinner. "My grandmother passed away," she said softly. "I'm sorry." She was old. She lived a long, good life. She looked down at her hands. Before she died, she told me not to waste time being alone. Her eyes met mine. She said even broken things can still work if you care enough to fix them. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. But something inside me shifted. After that, we spent more time together. We walked to the river after work. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. She liked watching the water. I liked watching her watch the water. She brought a small camera once. "I take pictures of small things," she said. "The world forgets them, but they're beautiful." She showed me a picture of the clock I fixed. "See, you brought this back to life." I smiled. It was just gears and springs. She shook her head. "No, it was love." Winter came. The hills turned white. The air smelled of wood smoke and cold metal. The shop was quieter than usual. Anna came every day still, sometimes with a scarf around her neck, sometimes with red cheeks from the cold. She always brought warmth with her, even when the world froze outside. One evening she said, "Do you ever want to leave this town?" I shook my head. "This is home." "Maybe," she said, "but sometimes home isn't where you're born. It's where you find peace." I looked at her. "And where do you find it?" She smiled. "Here." The words stayed with me. Spring arrived. The snow melted, and the river began to sing again. Flowers grew between cracks in the road. The shop's door stayed open during the day, letting sunlight in. One morning Anna didn't come again, but this time I wasn't afraid. I waited, and in the afternoon she appeared, carrying something wrapped in paper. "What's that?" I asked. She smiled. "A gift." She handed me the package. Inside was a small photo frame. In it was a picture of the shop window, sunlight falling on the table, and in the corner, 2 cups of tea. "It's us," she said. I felt something in my chest tighten, not in pain, but in warmth. "Why did you take this?" I asked. "So you remember," she said, "even if one day I'm not here." I looked at her. "Where would you go?" She smiled softly. "I don't know, but even if I leave, I'll still be around, in this place, in your days." I didn't know how to answer, so I just said, "Stay today." She laughed. "Okay." We spent the whole day together, fixing an old typewriter, eating bread and tea, talking about small things. For the first time, I laughed, thoroughly laughed. It felt strange, but good. Time moved on. Seasons turned. The shop stayed the same, but I didn't. I started greeting customers with a smile. I talked more. I visited the library. I even started taking walks in the evening. Sometimes Anna came. Sometimes she didn't. but even on the days she was gone, I felt her presence like sunlight through the window. One day she came with a suitcase. "I got a job," she said, smiling. "In another city. It's a small bookstore by the sea." My heart sank, but I tried to smile. "That's good." "It is," she said. "But it means I have to leave next week." I nodded. I didn't know what to say. She looked at me. "I'll come back to visit, I promise." I believed her. That week passed like a dream. We spent every evening by the river, watching the water turn gold in the sunset. On her last day, she came to the shop early in the morning. The sky was pink, and the air was still cool. She looked around the shop, touching the shelves, the clocks, the radios. "It's beautiful here," she said softly. Then she handed me something small, a tiny box. "Don't open it yet," she said. "Wait until I leave." I nodded. We said goodbye by the river. She smiled, then walked away slowly, her coat fluttering in the wind. I watched until she disappeared around the corner. When I returned to the shop, I opened the box. Inside was a small pendant shaped like a gear, with the words "Keep Going" engraved on the back. I held it in my hand and smiled. Months passed. She wrote sometimes short letters, always cheerful. She said the sea was blue and the bookstore smelled like old paper. She said she missed the sound of ticking clocks. I kept her letters in a small drawer beside my workbench. Every time I fixed something, I thought of her. One summer morning, the bell above the shop door rang. I turned. It was her. Her hair was a little shorter, her eyes brighter. She smiled. "I told you I'd come back." I didn't say anything. I just stepped forward, and she laughed. The shop was filled with sunlight. That evening we sat by the river again, the same place, the same quiet water. She looked at me. "You've changed," she said. "Maybe," I replied. "You taught me how." She smiled. "No, you fixed yourself." We watched the water flow, gold under the setting sun. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, silver key. "What's that?" I asked. She smiled. "It's to the bookstore. In case you ever visit." I took it and held it in my hand. It was warm. "Maybe I will," I said. She laughed softly. "I hope you do." The sun dipped below the hills. The world turned quiet and calm. The river whispered softly beside us. For years I thought silence meant emptiness. But sitting there, next to her, I learned it could also mean peace. Sometimes life doesn't give you big miracles. Sometimes it gives you small ones, a clock that ticks again, a voice that stays, a heart that opens slowly. And sometimes, when you least expect it, someone walks into your quiet world and brings a little light.